Suzanne coming up there. Hi and welcome to News and Views. I'm Suzanne Dowdy.
And I'm Sandee, Bengochea.
And we are happy to be together again. I hope the viewers are happy to be with us.
Yes, I know. And together we're wearing the national colors. Huh?
Yes, that's true. Well, we're almost in the month of independence,
yes,
so we must be getting ready for that.
Exactly.
Well, our Catholic news this week, the two front pages is, I guess the theme is youth, because we have a photograph here of the recent Jesus explosion. And there's a smaller picture of the Haitian-born priest, Father Louis Mirosny. I don't know how to pronounce it, maybe Mirost, if it's French. But we'll get to that on page 12. But I know that I heard from an adult, actually, who was there at the Jesus explosion, that they were so impressed with this priest.
Yes, so,
you heard about it too?
Yes, I heard that it was fantastic.
Fantastic. And whatever he talked about, and so really, you know, they said it was like hearing it for the first time. So I know that Trinity TV was there.
So
filming.
maybe we could feature it sometime.
Yes, I'm sure we will have it on our station.
Something to look forward to.
So if you ever see it advertised, Jesus Explosion, coming up, excerpts from Jesus Explosion, make sure that you're looking. And then we have the main headline, Healing Families, and the Caribbean Church Must Get Real. And this is, of course, for those of you who don't know, youth from all over the Caribbean are gathering in Martinique at this time. A lot of our priests, our own Archbishop and the Nuncio and the Monsignor Kabori, they're all, if they're not there already, they're heading there this weekend. Apparently, it is an amazing experience to have all these young people there. And for them, the excitement of going to Martinique for the first time, and all that. So, the front page article is all about that. And some of what the realities of family life that the youth express there: abuse, infidelity, divorce, miscommunication, deception, poverty, neglect, addiction, incest, and pornography. Imagine that from
and you know, I am reading that now, and it just hits me that it's just so much as challenging our young people now.
Yes.
That they would, you know, that they would look at that, and these things like divorce and deception, and so as addictions are so much a real part of their lives, and they're becoming afraid. You know, they're becoming afraid to get into relationships. They're becoming afraid to make commitments. They're afraid to have children. You know, so much of it happens with them.
You know, thank God for forums like this, and of course, what's available now in today's world, that they can express themselves. You know, thank God for that.
Yes, that they have a forum to chat.
So this is the realities of family life in the Caribbean, highlighted by the youth and young adults attending the Antilles Episcopal Conference Youth Assembly in Fort-de-France, Martinique. These issues were identified in response to Father Matthew Ragbir's call for young people to shout some of the challenges of family life ahead of their sessions on that Monday. And Father Matthew delivered the keynote address, and the theme, Youth Transforming the Caribbean Family. And Father Ragbir, who is the spiritual director / theological advisor for the Archdiocesan Family Life Commission here in Trinidad, observed that the Synod's reflection suggests that there is no stereotype of the ideal family. On the other hand, he compared Pope Francis's attitude of thanking God for the many families who, far from considering themselves perfect, live in love, fulfilling their call and moving forward even if they fell many times. In the midst of your own lives, do you think there is hope, he asked? Do you think love can last? Is what God has asked of us too difficult? To which the delegates replied, no. During his presentation, Father Ragbir invited the audience to think about their own family experience and their thoughts on love, marriage, vocation, and God's call in their lives. He then discussed the process for developing Amoris Laetitia, the result of Pope Francis's prayerful reflection on the discussions and outcomes of 2 synods of bishops held in Rome in 2014 and 2015 consecutively. Amoris Laetitia is that encyclical, which in English is the joy of love. And in that he pronounced on the importance of the welfare of the family, the church, and the world. If we reflect on the whole process used, the Pope is also telling us how to be family as church. The process teaches us that the church is in communion, a family of families. It also teaches us that the church cares deeply about families, marriages, relationships, sexuality, love, for the light and healing power of Christ is meant to touch every aspect of human life. He said, although there is a thinking that church is not supposed to touch the bedroom, the gospel of Jesus Christ is meant to touch every single thing that is human. He noted again that the 50th anniversary of Humanae Vitae, which is in English of human life, which was an encyclical written by Pope Paul VI way back in 1968. Father Ragbeer noted that the contention it caused concerning the Church's teaching on artificial contraception. Catholics were being invited to love and cherish family life in that encyclical. He said, if we are to allow the gospel to shine, there we are to realize it's not about perfection. It is about recognizing God's love to flow there. Whatever happens in family life, and we continue on page 3, its joy and sorrow is part of what the church enters into. When he asked the youths if they experienced this, some responded with a shout of no. And so, you know, it's this could not be more timely. Maybe it's even past the time, but at least in God's time, this is happening now, that young people from all over the Caribbean could get together, and after hearing Father Matthew Ragbeer give that keynote address, they can now go into their groups and really
have conversations, and hopefully we are listening.
Yes.
Hopefully we are listening, because we're so always ready to condemn the young people, and so often we don't respond to their cries.
That's right. That's right.
And it's so important for us to really listen to them, and their needs and so have become so different now.
You better believe it.
And
when we were growing up, and
exactly, we try to put them in this box and expect them to conform, and they don't plan to conform. You know, but they want happiness. They want when you go to these youth seminars and conventions, and so you really experience the joy of the young people, the experience of God, the experience of their faith, and so. And you also recognize that it is alive and well, and not as some of us can make it really dreary and dowdy as well. So, you know, it's so sad when you hear, I mean, the first list at the top, it just breaks my heart. You know, the abuse, infidelity, divorce, deception, poverty, neglect, addictions,
and that they could express that at the drop of a hat, because they would not have been asked before to think about what you're coming to respond with. In his talk, Father Matthew would have asked them to respond, and they could just, you know, respond. And they can just,
which means that, you know, that these issues, among those thousands or hundreds of young people there, these issues have been touching them and affecting them negatively.
Yes, they're wounded by these
They're
issues.
wounded.
Father Ragbeer ended by reminding pilgrims that if they are waiting on the bishops, priests, and religious to do all the work, it is impossible, because the church, he says, is you, me, it's all of us. And, you know, we hope that those who are, the adults who are there at this conference, as Sandee said, that they're listening, and coming out of it, we will see, you know, big things happening. All right, so we can go to our editorial now.
The editorial, and it talks about the nexus of school and parish. The results are out on the parish discussions on family life. The parish, leadership in church and society, Catholic education and clergy and vocation.
And I wonder if our viewers remember that Archbishop Jason had asked each parish, and if you are part of a parish, you should have been part of this discussion, to reflect on these various issues.
Yes, and most of the parishes responded, 70%. Which,
that's amazing.
Yeah, which statistically is a very sound sampling. The two hot topics emerging are the parish and Catholic education, and I think that's really so important. Many had hedged their bets on family life, but they did not place either first or second. And this means the short-term 3 to 5 year renewal of the local church depends heavily on where the parish and Catholic education are heading.
And that's amazing, eh?
That's
because
amazing.
As they say there that many hedge their bets on family life. So, you know, we are feeling that family life is a big issue, and it is a big issue. But obviously from the
but
results.
it is a big issue, but you know, you really do get a sense, and maybe it's because I taught in a Catholic school myself and I have children, but you get a sense really that the Catholic church schools are not really, you know, stepping up to the challenge of teaching the faith as it should. Further discussion is coming to the parishes in a few months based on objectives, activities, responsibilities, time frames, etc. In the meantime, we can make a few provisional remarks in light of the challenges ahead. The parish and primary schools ought to be seen as closely connected as they were decades ago.
That's right.
Too often, schools and parishes operate independently of each other, and the school is not an appendage to the parish. If there is one or more in the parish, it or they are an integral part of it. And not only the principal and manager must know what is going on in them, but the wider parish as well. Right. That is so true. Take, for instance, the recently released SEA results. All managers should have seen the results as they pertain to their school. If they have not, how many principals have called their managers about the results and invited them to review it with them?
Good idea.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah. We know we have many primary schools on academic watch, and they're not coming up to scratch on the national tests. One mantra given as a reason for this is teachers need to have parents on board with them to engender greater success. And this is supported by copious research. Parental involvement raises the caliber of any school. If this is so, tons of children from the East Port of Spain and similar environs are destined for the dark corridors of gangland because their parents are simply not going to be there. It's so sad. It was therefore refreshing to hear another model, also backed up by research, that children improve considerably under the influence of a significant other or others in their lives. A relative who is a diehard for education, a priest or religious, dedicated teachers at school, not to mention a whole range of stakeholders that can come from the parish: businessmen, businesswomen, police, firefighters, catechists, teachers, past pupils, still waiting on jobs, experts, therapists. There's so many of them. They can deal with trauma in children, sharp-eyed experts who can spot learning difficulties associated with autism and related conditions.
And you know that paragraph is so important there, because you know, you can put your hands up in the air and say, well, you know, these children all come from broken families, there's no father figure, etc. But right here, we have another model where if they have significant others in their lives, you can step in.
And you know, I had such an interesting experience this week about, you know, the model of teacher-student relationship. This young man came to me, and now he's in his late 30s, and I taught him. And he came to me at my office and he said, I just want to chat with you. And we sat down talking, and he had some issues he was dealing with in his life. And he said, you know, I wanted to speak to you about it because I remember our relationship back. And this is when he was a miserable little teenager, given he had in school, you know. And he sought me out and he found me and he came to the office to chat with me. And it was so beautiful because we sat down for over 2 hours, like two adults chatting. He was on a totally different plane now, you know, a married man with children and so professional person. And he wanted to have a discussion with me. He said, you know, I thought about who I could come and have this discussion with, and I just thought of you.
And beautiful, yes.
You know, and it
the
just
impression you would have left on his life.
And it just goes to show how teachers can have an impression on children's life. And I think so often we don't recognize. I was shocked. Where did this person come out from? You know, according to how it is saying Trinidad, where he come out from? You know, but it was just so beautiful, connecting. And talking at another level, and you know, in so many ways as a teacher, you feel proud of them. That you know, and in many ways, you know, we talk about remunerations and so as teachers, but you see that just that little thing, that's your reward.
That's it.
That's your reward. You know, at least you've made a difference.
Beyond whatever salary you can make, to know that you are there for someone.
That you are there for
someone. Help them in their life.
And when you call teaching a vocation, you know, that's what we mean, rather than just a profession. It's a vocation as well.
Couldn't agree with you more.
You know, many parishes can provide at least some of these experts. But often there is little interaction between parish and school on these matters. The Catholic Education Board of Management has also not been alerting parishes on many of the good things they are doing in the background. All these sectors must be working hand in hand and not appear to be guarding their turf. And I think that is the thing, the egos get in the way. We should even consider giving up some of our high-performing primary schools to government in a preferential option for the weaker ones. Big, tall order there.
I tell you.
Otherwise, we give the impressions we have left the black hen chickens to fend for themselves. And you know, I don't think. That's necessary at all. No,
that's a hot topic.
Yeah, it is. It is a hot topic, but you know, because you know we do the National Spelling Bee, and we interact with 500 primary schools in this country, and you know, you find in the Catholic schools, the Muslim schools, the Presbyterian schools, the government schools, and so you know, you find both. Good and bad, and students who are very active. And it's all about the teachers and the parenting, really. It's about the commitment that the teachers
are willing to make.
And a very good example, if I may say so, is Shagwana's government. Shagwana's government just got 22 students in the first 100. Okay. And I work with the Shagwana's government school through the Spelling Bee, and if you know the background of the schools, the parents are very involved in the school, and the parents are and it's a government school, you know, but the parents are very, very actively involved in the school,
so that says a lot,
working with them.
Yes,
you know, and even schools like, I remember Eastern Boys in Port of Spain as well. The little boy, he came third in the spelling bee in the national finals, and it was when you met the teacher you could understand why. You could the Moravian school again. The teachers are the ones who push the students, and you know, you meet a teacher and you could get a sense of commitment.
And that's why they're teachers and they're teachers.
Exactly.
Those willing to commit, those who just don't turn up for work, we can't even call it work, don't turn up to teach and educate the children of the nation, because you know, today I just didn't feel to go.
You didn't feel to go. Even if I turn up, I just don't turn up in the class. You know, and I just have nothing prepared for them. And when you don't get the little minds occupied in something, they're going to get into mischief, and then you say the children are not.
And they can't see the bigger picture of, okay, I'm a teacher, I should be at my job educating these children today. When I don't do that, I'm giving them all sorts of negative you know, teaching them the way they should not be. And then when these children are no longer interested in being educated or learning, then it affects the wider society, because then they're out on the street, they join gangs, and so it starts off as that little seed, but you know, we should see it as that bigger picture.
And get involved, you know, and all these people that they're talking about here, you know, past pupils, and so just get involved.
Retired teachers.
And simple things like the police and the firefighters, and so, you know, you talk to young boys, little boys, and what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a policeman. I want to be a firefighter. And these people are role models.
That's right.
You know, they can go into the schools and be role models for the children. Are we talking about something that is impossible?
No, it's not impossible. You know? It can happen.
You know?
Well, we want to take our first break, and remember, for those of you who are joining us maybe for the first time today, halfway through the program, we open up the telephone lines and we welcome you and encourage you to pick up the phone and give us a call. So we're going to go to our first break, and this is about the pontificate of Benedict XVI. So this should be interesting. They're looking at his years of being priest and bishop and finally Pope. So let's take a look and listen.
This is perhaps the first book that provides a complete and balanced perspective on the pontificate of Benedict XVI. It was written by Roberto Rogali, Director of the Department of History of the Church at the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome.
quando era finito questo pontificato.
The studies that were made following the pontificate mainly focused on the final day, and that eclipsed all the politics of the papacy. I wanted to give the historical vision of the pontificate, the correct perspective, see what this pope and his collaborators did, the things they fought for, what worked and did not work.
The subtitle of the book is Beyond the Crisis of the Church. Roberto Rogali considers that this was the mission that the cardinals entrusted to Benedict XVI during the conclave.
Nel conclave tra I cardinali
The majority opinion in the conclave was that there was a crisis in the church and in society, a crisis in the relationship of faith with the world, from which cultural issues were derived. Therefore, the goal of the cardinals who voted for Ratzinger and for Benedict XVI was to go beyond the crisis. The guiding thread of the pontificate was the attempt to overcome this social and ecclesial crisis.
In the opinion of Roberto Rogali, Benedict's pontificate found original solutions to the problems that the Church then had.
Abbiamo tutto un discorso nuovo.
We see a new form of ecumenism with the creation of ordinary Anglo-Catholics, an affective and effective ecumenism, a real communion that shares the Eucharist and the sacraments, with which the spiritual and liturgical wealth of the Anglican tradition enters the Catholic Church. And the dialogue with other religions is not only limited to meeting and praying for peace in the same city, but it sets in motion a cultural discourse in which religions are confronted with a culture to build peace.
The most important gesture of Benedict XVI was his resignation, above all, how he acted after it. The popes who previously resigned returned to be bishops or cardinals. Benedict is the first pope emeritus of history and has taught his successors to fulfill this office. The book, The Pontificate of Benedict XVI, is an essential work to know Joseph Ratzinger, understand the current situation of the Church, and see what the future will look like.
A beautiful picture there of the Vatican, St. Peter's. Oh gosh, so beautiful with the.
And he's an amazing man. When you read about him and you read some of his work, you know, and he continues to, he continues, you know.
I'm sure now he must be writing behind the scenes. We'll have something to read in a few years' time. So we move from the editorial. There are two quite long letters to the editor. I can't read all of it, but just to highlight in that first letter, it would be interesting to know what was the response of Pope Francis to one of the issues raised by youth at the pre-synodal meeting in Rome. And I'm just highlighting this because you're talking about youth and the Jesus explosion and what's going on in Martinique. And the youth wanted to know how to teach young people to be open to their neighbor and to the transcendent. So the writer goes on to say that the latter requires training in the daily disciplines of discipleship of Jesus Christ, the consoling practices of the Catholic religion, and its sacred mysteries, especially the Mass and Rosary, and the spiritual skills that will help them live daily in the abiding presence of Jesus, and his interior joy, which alone can make them strong against the enemies of their soul, that is, the devil, the world, and the flesh, and dispose them to have no eyes for things that are visible, but only for things that are invisible. For visible things last only for a time, and the invisible things are eternal, which is a quotation taken from 2 Corinthians. But I like that last paragraph because I think it applies to all of us, that we need to, you know, hook on to the consoling practices of the Catholic religion, the Mass, the Rosary, and you know, all that helps us to be converted. When every time we go to Mass, it's an opportunity for each one of us to be converted. Praying the Rosary, you know, when we are fighting against, you know, the spiritual warfare that we don't even really understand what's going on in our lives. Those are the things we put in place.
And sometimes, you know, a lot of times, you know, we find that we're so distracted when we go to Mass, and we're so distracted, especially if something is on our mind and we have a problem, and so we say the Rosary. But a lot of it is just presence, you know, putting yourself in the presence of God and trusting that, you know, although
He knows what's going on in your mind and why you can't keep focused. He knows all that.
No,
but the fact that you've made the effort to be there.
And a lot of young people ask me about that, you know, but I can't stay focused on the Rosary. I can't. And it's okay, you know, just presence and just those moments when you come back to it. And, you know, God understands.
He does.
Mary understands.
Yes.
You know.
All right. So what do we have here on page 3? Well, we certainly have a picture there. No, I see a description here that must be one of the new fangled words that I don't understand. We have a picture for the Matthew Ragbeer presenting the Keynote Express address, in Martinique, but they describe it as a video screen grab. So that must be a
yeah, they probably pulled it from the
video. But I have never heard that video screen grab. That
well, you have to go to communication schools.
Learn about that. That's a new one.
Yeah.
And then we have Laventil devotions. We have Father Trevor Nattersing laying hands on our brother Kyle Dowdy, who gave the main talk. And then we have Archbishop Jason Gordon, who has been continuing his conversations with students. And he's been chatting over lunch with Catholic secondary school students about society, life, church, and other issues. I don't know if you remember in a previous edition of the Catholic News where we had a picture of him with the St. Joseph Convent students and Holy Name Convent. He met on July 11th with 3 senior students of St. Mary's College and 5 from his alma mater, Fatima College. And so can you imagine, these young people having lunch with the Archbishop and just being able to
Well, I think, Archbishop
freely.
Jason is a pretty easy person he would connect very easily with the young people.
They wouldn't feel intimidated.
Yeah.
And he would be able to draw out of them over that casual, it's not a meeting, you're having lunch, you're talking, and to be able to listen to them.
Just connect. And that's where you connect. That's where you connect with them, to see, like yesterday I went to pick up the girls and the principal was out there on the volleyball court chatting with the girls, and they were all in there sweaty after volleyball and so on. She just stood up there and she was chatting with them for a good 20 minutes, just all talking and chatting with them. And when we talk about connecting with youths, that's where we have to start.
That's right.
That's where we have to start, for her to go out there and just be and a lot of times we want to put it in a formal environment and plan, okay, we are going to connect with them and you miss the boat completely.
That's because in experiences like that, they just don't feel like
and they know
sharing.
what you want to hear.
Yes.
And they tell you.
Yes. Well, you as a teacher would know that.
So it's
but in informal places like that, in a volleyball court or around a table
and
eating,
different environments. So they're out there.
Yeah, they feel much more free to be able to express themselves and to know that they're being listened to. On Sunday, the 22nd of July, that is, what's the date today? Well, this that would be this Sunday.
Yes,
My
this
God,
Sunday.
it's flying. So that's this Sunday.
So today's the 20th.
That's right. Healing of the Family Tree. There's a mass for Healing of the Family Tree. It's at 5 p.m. at your parish church, St. Joseph R.C. Church. The celebrant, Father Cornelius Phillip, and it's hosted by the Suburban Vicariate Youth Council. A procession and poor man's dinner is going to follow after Mass. But that Healing the Family Tree Mass is so powerful in praying for generations in our families. Of course, there's much more there in that calendar of events, but I'll just stop there.
There's something here that really caught my attention, a place for persons with disabilities. A relatively new workshop at Liturgy School is facilitating persons with disabilities, which will be led by Bethesda. How do you pronounce that?
Bethesda.
Bethesda, a Catholic community for families of persons with disabilities. It promotes the inclusion of PWD's disabilities in the life of the church, and particularly in the liturgical celebration. And I think that is so important. Participants, we hope, will include priests, deacons, catechists, lay ministers, parishioners, volunteers, and they will share in the experience of walking in the shoes of someone with a disability and learn how the Mass itself impacts on the lives of the disabled and their families.
This is so beautiful, because we've seen this group grow from a little seed into they're really beginning to flourish even more and more.
Doing work. The intention behind these masses, as a means of enabling the disabled to participate fully in the celebration of the Eucharist, sensory-friendly masses have been introduced in our archdiocese. These masses are held every second Sunday at Holy Trinity RC in Arouca and every fourth Sunday at St. Benedict's RC in La Romaine. The masses follow a routine pattern that help our disabled to know what to expect, and by adjusting aspects that affect their functioning, that is their sensory processing, they provide a comfortable space where they can be accepted as they are without forcing them into traditional societal conforms. the intentions behind these masses is not to separate them, but simply to provide a forum that allows them to be part of the community in an environment that suits their needs. And I think that is so beautiful, because you know, you see so often, you see the disabled, and sometimes you go to mass and you wonder, are there really disabled people in our community, because they're not there.
Yes,
so when they're not at the mass, you might be able to point out one or two.
Because it's so difficult for the families to bring them.
Yes,
they tend to be a distraction, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and even to maneuver their way into the pew, you know, it's difficult. It's so difficult.
And that, there's more about that on page 11. There's a story here by Laura Phillips, talking about that, the experience of someone who is disabled in a different, even in a different way. When we think about disabled and handicapped, right away you get that picture of somebody who can't see or who can't walk, who's in a wheelchair. But hear this. Imagine going to Sunday Mass with everything apparently quite normal to everybody else, but to you it's like a collision course for your senses. The music and singing seem to drill right through your ears to the center of your head. The lights sear your eyes as if you've been staring into the sun. Someone brushes past, barely touching you, but it feels as though a high voltage cable was thrust into your skin. And that's right after the scent of every person in the room crowds into your nostrils as though you had sunk into a pool of smells. Nobody else seems to understand what you're feeling, and you can't communicate it so well. And she says this is a sample of what it's like to have sensory processing disorder. I mean, how many of us have even heard of that? We're going to stop there because we have our first call. Hello?
Hello, good morning. I'd just like to say, a public thank you to Sandee. All what she's saying about this young man coming to look for her after so many years and so on. She was very helpful to my granddaughter. There was an accident with her grandfather on the way to Sandee's home, and on her way she stopped and comforted my granddaughter. And my granddaughter was so happy, you know, she came, she told me, Mama, I felt so, this lady came and she hugged me and she spoke with me and she told me about Granddad, and I felt so good. So what Sandee's saying about her care for people and so on, the students, it is true. And, you know, Sandee, just continue being the sweet person that you are. Keep giving love to these children. Thank you.
Thank you for calling. Thank you. That's lovely.
Thank you so much for saying that.
And I'm sure it was just a spontaneous action. I mean, you weren't really thinking.
Thank you. I remember that. Thank you very much for taking the time to call.
Yes.
Thank you so much. You know, and you know, you're reading this article about the disabled, but you know, sometimes I think as well how we have to be aware that a disability is not always something that is visible, that you can see.
That's right.
You know, sometimes, like for example, you park in a car park, and the person the other day, I parked in Scotia car park right in Port of Spain because I had cracked my ankle and I couldn't walk, but I had to go to the bank. But it was my left ankle, you know, so I was driving with my right foot, but my left ankle was in a cast. And I asked the guard, I said, can I park in the disabled park? And he said, sure, because I explained to him. And when I parked there, this woman is coming out and she stopped and she told me
you wouldn't repeat it.
The most unkind words,
yes,
you know.
Yes.
And she really told me off about it, you know, and you're making an assumption. And so often we make assumptions because a lot of times people have breathing problems, they can't walk long distances and all kinds of different disabilities that they might be looking.
I'm glad you brought that up.
That they might be looking perfect, but really
you don't know what's going on.
You don't know. And you know, and I've seen in other countries where they have the disabled parking, and they do have a footnote to it that, you know, disabilities are not always recognizable.
Right.
So that people recognize that, you know, they might want to park there, but they know what is happening with their own bodies. I guess it's about respect in a community.
That's right.
Yeah, and trust.
Yeah, and not being so quick to judge, which, you know, all of us are guilty of.
You know, exactly.
So this is this article really helps us to maybe get a little insight in what it can be. I mean, I'd never even heard of the sensory processing disorder. So imagine feeling all that we've been described to us here. Imagine feeling like that. I mean, you don't want to even leave home, far less go to mass or to church. So this is so again, this is just a sort of a continuation of what we had talked about, the Bethesda community celebrated their 3rd anniversary on July the 8th this year with Holy Mass at Holy Trinity RC Church in Arouca. Just over 60 persons attended, and Archbishop Emeritus Joseph Harris significantly was celebrant. It was under his bishopric that Bethesda came into being after he made provision for sensory-friendly masses to be celebrated in his private chapel at Archbishop's house. And I remember that. I remember when they first started. And in sensory-friendly liturgies, for those of you who don't even know what we're talking about, the congregation sits for the entire Mass because, to say, for example, an autistic child, standing can send the signal that it's time to leave. And it can be quite a task to get them to sit down again once everybody has stood up and they think it's time to leave.
Yes.
Then to get them to sit down and then is almost impossible. During the time to receive Holy Communion, the celebrant or extraordinary minister of the Eucharist walks into the congregation to distribute to those who indicate their desire to receive. So, you know, that's what it's all about, you know, understanding what, you know, their needs are and being able to
and trusting,
create a mass.
Yes, trusting that, you know, something is going on in this person's life, you know. Even, I think sometimes simple things, like a lot of times when you're pregnant, they can't handle the scents, the different fragrances.
Right.
And we get very upset with people, but simple things, you know, sometimes just being aware of humanity is so important.
So this, we haven't read this whole article. There's much more about it to read.
And it's well worth reading, because it makes you aware of, you know, things that you just can't imagine.
And I think after reading that, your eyes will be open now to, you know, perhaps this is, you know, one of those people they've just described.
That something is happening.
And sometimes when you have an autistic child or young adult, you know, it's so very brave of the parents to actually take them out into public or to bring them to Mass. And, you know, they might be sort of rocking and making funny sounds, you know, during Mass. But for everybody to be turning around every time they make a sound, you know, after you realize that, okay.
It's challenging for the parent.
Yes, you know, and you can understand when parents say, look, it's just not worth it for me to bring. And then the parent now loses out on being able to attend Mass.
And it's so much emotional stress already you're faced with. And then to want to have some degree of normalcy in your life with the child, and then to have to endure that. And I think it's just becoming, as a society, we need to mature that way.
Yes,
to become sensitive
to. Now, one of the things I think we need to become sensitive to in the whole world is something that's going on in Nicaragua right now. And I don't think, I might be wrong, but I have not really seen it on any of the big cable stations, news stations. We're going to give you a little insight into this now, and then when we come back, we'll talk about it.
The nuncio to Nicaragua, Cardinal Leopoldo Brenes, and Auxiliary Bishop Silvio Jose Baez were assaulted in a church by a group of masked men linked to President Daniel Ortega. Monsignor Baez posted a photo of his wounds on Twitter, saying he's been hit in the stomach and they stole his episcopal cross.
This is nothing compared to what the Nicaraguan people are suffering. We, the bishops, have been able to view firsthand the aggressive, assassin face of the structure that is dominating Nicaragua at this time. Various bishops have been subjected to physical and verbal aggression. Everything can be prevented when we reason, when we act in goodwill, when we look for peaceful solutions. But through violence, everything heads for a dead end. Thus, the Church's calling has always been against violence and aggression toward anyone or anything.
Since April, the military and supporters of Daniel Ortega are oppressing peaceful protests. Although 309 people have died and thousands have been injured, the public continues to demonstrate and block streets. The church is offering to mediate, but the government says it will not negotiate with the opposition until protests cease. Meanwhile, the Cardinal and Nuncio are traveling to the most sensitive areas to calm the tensions. On June 21st, they stopped a massacre by going through the streets with the consecrated host.
We've seen in the 2 wars we've had, where more than 50,000 people died, but there were armed people. It was one armed group against another armed group, but not in this case. It is against people who are walking down the street without a gun or someone behind a barricade, maybe with a mortar. So this is much more intense than a war.
The Pope has publicly called for prayers for the restoration of order in the country. On May 11th, the Holy Father wrote a letter to President Daniel Ortega in which he reminded that it's never too late for forgiveness and reconciliation, and recalled that violence only increases division and suffering.
The Vatican Secretary of State expressed his concern over the violence in Nicaragua. We hope that dialogue, which is the next step, can begin again and produce results. However, in all dialogue, there must be a will to reach an agreement. The prelates didn't suffer serious injury, but they said this act demonstrates the violent environment that exists in the country. The Secretary of State also spoke of the migrant situation in Europe. He was on a visit to the Vatican hospital, Bambino Gesù, which presented its annual report on social and medical activity. Parolin lamented the Italian government's decision to close ports to the NGOs that rescue migrants. Its interior minister publicly expressed his suspicion that there is business being done between NGOs and human traffickers. I think we already expressed our concern. I said closing the ports is not the solution to this problem. It's the same opinion expressed by NGOs present at the Mass Pope Francis celebrated for migrants on the 5th anniversary of his visit to the island of Lampedusa, the southern Italian site where thousands of African refugees attempt to arrive.
Well, we have two very important and serious stories going on in that video clip there, and that first one about what's happening in Nicaragua. I don't know if have you seen it on television
No, I haven't seen
all?
it on the foreign news stations.
No, at all, and I hope that they're going to pick up on this, because the cardinal there said that he was not sort of badly injured, but I mean, you know, to get a cut like that on your arm, it really says a lot about, you know, what had happened there. I mean, you must be very traumatized. We have another call.
Yes, good morning, ladies.
Morning.
Right. I want to tell you all something. I'm a senior citizen. I want you all to know all is not lost. All is not lost. Now, I have to go wherever I have to go. So I have to go in a car. I can't walk far. I have to walk with a stick. But let me tell you something. Every day I reach to the bank, there's a, whoever it is, whether it's an old man or a young man, they're standing up. They open me, so I have to laugh, you know?
Yeah.
Because you cannot see any disability in me from outside.
Right.
But from my head to my toe, there are problems. You know?
Yes.
And they're opening the doors and everything. But the one that took me most is I went to the inland, the section on boundaries. So I told the person who was driving the car with me, who helped me, you know? I said, listen, we have to park. But for days I've been preparing myself. How am I going to make this? How am I going to wait? How am I going to sit down? I'm running to the bathroom every minute, just thinking about going there. And would you believe when I reached the section on boundaries, I was shocked to death. We went to the lady and she said, no, Charlotte, no, she's not coming. We are going to come to her. So I said, okay, what do you mean come to her? And they showed us we had to park downstairs, and the people from upstairs came down. She went up with them and they filled out her form, and they came down and took my picture in the car, and I was mystified. I said, all is not lost.
All is not lost.
What is going on now, you know?
Yes.
We still have to pray and hope, because I cannot go to mass or anything like that. But I get my fill on the television, because there are so many things I didn't know.
Yeah.
So many details. I wouldn't say things I didn't know, but details of the Catholic religion, the Catholic faith, things that you don't know. You look at EWTN and Trinity, you get so much details, you know. I said, well, perhaps that I have stayed on my whole life, because I didn't know now.
I love that.
God bless you, and all is not lost.
Amen. All right.
All is not lost.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Thank
It's so good to get calls like
Yes,
that. You know,
yes.
she was treated like the queen that she is.
That's
you know?
amazing, wonderful.
Yes,
Oh,
and hats
gosh.
off the Elections and
Boundaries Commission.
Thank
Wow,
you
wow.
so much.
Great
And,
service.
yes, and that's what we want Trinidad to be.
Yes, yes.
That's where we want to get.
Well, sister, that will be our mantra for today and for this weekend. All is not lost. That's going to be our mantra everywhere we
It's
go.
not lost.
Oh gosh,
It's
yes,
so
and
true.
that is, you know, a real good news story.
It is.
Indeed,
it's
all
so
is
good.
not lost.
It's so good to get those stories.
And let's keep the calls going. We don't mind stopping reading our newspaper to be able to hear from you, so let's keep the calls coming. On page 5, under the communications banner, we have IPCP, a call to holiness, collaborative ministry and communion. And our Archdiocese, the report is by Father Robert Christo, who is a vicar for communications. our archdiocese and the region are taking steps towards a collaborative pastoral model called the Integrated Pastoral Communications Plan. That's what IPCP stands for. Perhaps you have not heard of IPCP or wanted to know more about this new pastoral model if you have heard it. So each week, the Vicar for Communications, Father Robert Christo, is going to share on this IPCP process. It stands, as we said, for Integrated Pastoral Communications Plan, with the term integrated calling for the involvement of all forms of communication media within all ministries in the Archdiocese, which also includes a communication component. And I like how the article is presented with all the various graphics. So where was it born? This initiative was born out of the Pastoral Council for Pastoral Communications way back in 1991, which issued a pastoral instruction, Aetatis Novae, which is in English is a dawn of a new era, celebrating the rapid communication technologies since the publication of another encyclical, Communio e Progressio, which was about social communications, and that came out of Vatican Council II. So, what is the core of these pontifical pastoral instructions? The need for the Church to become a bridge between humanity and the digital world is at the heart of it, or alongside designing and implementing an IPCP central to all ministries in the Church. Opening up of the diversity of communication technologies and IPCP affords us as Church the rich opportunity to begin to think, plan, and act collaboratively for the future to reach the evolving generations. So, oh, we have another call. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. Another bright and happy person.
Congratulations to you two beautiful ladies. Lovely show.
Thank you.
And I am also a senior. I used to love to shop and walk about the malls and so. But like the previous caller, I walk with a cane now. And when I get to the malls or wherever I'm going, doors are open for me. I'm like a queen now. I still drive. And when I'm at the major road, I'm adding a little humor to all is not love. When I am at a major road, I roll down my glass. And when people see me, all cars stop. And I drive out. So they happens to be a senior.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
What I called about as well, could you give me the days for the Mass for the Disabled at Aruka Church?
Yes, it's right here. It's at Trinity RC Church in Aruka, and it's held every second Sunday.
Second Sunday.
At 11:15 a.m.
11:15. I have a son with MS, and that will suit him fine, and it will suit me as well.
Fantastic.
Great. So thank you and congratulations on doing a fantastic job.
Well, thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Okay,
Oh, God.
bye.
And for the humor.
Yes, yes, I could just
I
imagine.
like that, yes.
I'm a senior citizen that goes through, you know.
And she says everybody stops. That's really nice.
Yes,
That's cute.
that is really
Thank
beautiful.
God. Really and truly,
And
all is
it's
not lost.
heartwarming to know that people are recognizing at least our senior citizens. So at least it's a start.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
it's a start. We're starting from somewhere.
And you know, this
treating
is
them
what,
with respect.
this is the Trinidad that we all know, at least some of us who are a certain age. That's the Trinidad we grew up in, you know, that people stopped if you had a flat tire at the side of the road, whatever, and you didn't have to be afraid of who was coming to help
who's
you,
stopping.
you know?
Yeah.
Because I think Trinidadians at heart, that's who we are, you know, loving and welcoming and hospitable and, you know, ready to help at the drop of a hat. So thank God,
we just
indeed,
have to
all is
find
not
back.
lost.
We just have to go back there and
Yes,
find that.
yes.
And those were two really beautiful calls.
Yes, I
you
really
know?
enjoyed that.
You know, it's
enjoyed that.
so wonderful to know that people are respecting our seniors. And talking about seniors, we need to highlight our Archbishop Emeritus. Yes.
Yeah, what page is that? You have that, yes.
Yes, and it's on page 13. Of course, it's the center spread. It's part of the center spread. Archbishop Harris celebrates his Golden Jubilee. Yes, and we have lovely pictures here of him getting hugs all over. And of course, he celebrated the Mass at Fatima College Chapel. What's heaven really like? Archbishop Emeritus Joseph Harris hopes it's like a carnival band with togetherness, enjoyment, and happiness. These are all values which he would like the faithful to see as being part of following Christ. God is not only on the cross, but in the happiness and smiles of people, he remarked, lamenting that an image of a happy, laughing Christ is an aspect we never seem to pick up on. He hoped that more local religious art would offer this dimension of the divine.
Yeah, maybe somebody out there might pick up if you're an artist, and maybe let's see a few pictures of Jesus laughing.
There's a beautiful picture of Christ laughing. Yes. You know, I remember when Father Anton Dick used to have it in his office, you know, of him laughing, and it's a black and white sketched picture of him. And it's so beautiful.
Yeah, we need to see more of those.
The 10th Archbishop of Port of Spain was speaking at a July 14th luncheon at the Fatima College Auditorium to celebrate his golden jubilee of priestly ordination. Wow. Speaking last, the guest of honor thanked his siblings and extended family for always being there for him. His many friends and former St. Mary's College classmates who led a chorus of "For he's a jolly good fellow" when he finished his speech. Keep praying for me, he told those present. And also speaking were his older brother, Conrad Harris, the Apostolic Nuncio, Archbishop Jason, and friend Donna Miles. A schoolmate, Felix Allingborough, served as Master of Ceremony. Wow.
And when Archbishop Gordon spoke, he said that his predecessor, Archbishop Emeritus Joseph Harris, was not, in inverted commas, in the waiting room. He didn't consider that at all, to be called home by God, but waiting rather to be called to another role in life, because he still has so much to offer, and we know that.
Yes, as we can see from Pope Benedict, you know,
he still has so much to offer. Okay, well, we're kind of going back and forward here, but I think we better go to page 9, where we have the official. It's written by Father Martin Sergiu, the Vicar General, because Archbishop Jason Gordon is in Martinique this weekend. Thanks to all who attended, dear sisters and brothers, thanks to all who attended last Sunday's Marian devotions in Laventille. I know it may have been difficult as the World Cup final was being played that day. May the Blessed Virgin Mary continue to intercede for us and for our nation. Congratulations to all my brother clergy of this archdiocese celebrating their anniversaries of priestly ordination during the coming weeks. In the next 2 weeks, there will be the annual School of Liturgy from the 30th of July to the 4th of August, and the Caribbean School for Catholic Communications, August 5th to 11th. Take note. These 2 annual week-long schools are important to the development of the local and regional church. Let us pray for their successes. Let us also remember in prayer the various children's camps taking place across the Archdiocese. The Children's Authority recently urged parents and guardians to ensure the safety of their children during the vacation period, issuing relevant tips. Please read about these on page 4 of the Catholic News. Father Martin Sergiu, Vicar General.
And then, you know, if we go to page 4, we could look at it here very quickly, because I think it's so important that we spend some time managing.
Because they give you some really important reminders.
Some of the tips to ensure children are supervised at all times by a responsible and trusted adult, you know. Keep an open...
You know, we think that you take that for granted, and then you hear these horrible stories of something that happened to a child left alone at home or wherever.
And we just thought they were, keep an open line of communication with children so that they can disclose any incidents of abuse. Listen to them when they're talking, you know, chat with them. Be wary of physical and non-physical signs of child abuse in your children. Marks, discharges when bathing or changing young children, in pains or discomforts in poor hygiene, hostility, secrecy. Also create and have a plan with members of the family, including children on family outings, including malls visits. Make sure you have them there. And so
it's important for us to listen to this.
And the public is advised that all reports of abuse should be made to the police at 999 and the authorities hotline 996 or 800-2014.
Great. At least we have something in place.
Something in place for that.
I think we might just have time for one last video clip, and this one looks interesting, about the holy stairs. I'm not sure what this one is about, but it sparked my interest. So let's go to that.
La Scala Santa, secondo la tradizione,
the holy stairs, according to tradition, is the staircase Jesus climbed to Pilate,
fu giudicato
where he was judged and condemned to death.
In questo anno è
This year, it is being restored.
A partire dal 2013
Since 2013,
abbiamo già restaurato la cappella
we have restored the chapel of St. Lawrence, which is used as a church,
usato come chiesa,
and then the four-side staircase that can now be admired.
Laterali che già si possono ammirare.
Ci siamo resi conto di quanto queste
We
pitture
realized how much these paintings would be useful in expressing their message. This, thanks to the cleaning and restoration, has been put into focus.
Questi ambienti erano, diciamo, avevano perso la loro funzione.
These scenes had lost their ability to accompany the faithful in this way.
In questo senso, perché
This is because the walls were dark and dirty. They weren't illuminated well.
Erano soltanto degli ambienti
They were just dusty and a bit gloomy,
che non invogliavano il
and
fedele.
didn't captivate the faithful.
E la pulitura ci ha permesso di
The cleaning has allowed us to rediscover the tones,
quelle tonalità,
the warm colors,
caldi,
the hues,
quel cromatismo che comunque
that in any case was imagined precisely for this purpose.
scopo. Ed è bello vedere come tanta
It's
gente
beautiful to see so many people appreciating this in the areas already restored.
The difference in how the faithful and the visitor is viewing the sanctuary has been dramatically changed. Before, of course, people would mount the stairs, but they would not look at the images on the wall, A, because they were obscured by centuries of dirt, and B, because they were not properly illuminated. Now, with these glorious colors and professional lighting, illumination, all done through the consulting with the Vatican museums, the faithful are actually more than looking, they're observing and studying these stories. And again, going back to the Bible, going back to the Catechism, going back to the story of the sanctuary, going back to the counter-reform, the doctors of the church, all these issues are now very, very clear.
Sandee and I are just remembering, various visits to Rome, not together, but, and, the beauty of, just some of what you saw there.
It's just
you can just never get enough of it. As a matter of fact, after a few hours, you've just been saturated with so much beauty, and to think that people took time to create that, by hand. This is not created by machine or anything like that, by hand. And now these people are taking their time and using their particular talent to be able to restore it. And look at those colors and the
so amazingly beautiful, and the talent to just be bringing it back gently, one little piece at a time.
Even that must be a prayerful experience.
Exactly,
those who are doing
exactly
it
to do things like that and returning, that calmness to your spirit. I think that's what so many of us are lacking. We just get caught up in this rat race, and the calm, simple beauty in life to be able to see back and appreciate it.
And the holy stairs, that you see people going up on their knees, that's another experience. Well, I'm looking at the clock, so we're just going to highlight for those of you viewing from Barbados. Yes, we have an article about you and Father Leonard Alfonso, who had a Thanksgiving Mass to celebrate his 80th birthday. Father Leonard, very well loved in Barbados. On page 7, beautiful picture of a 30-year-old immigrant from Honduras kissing his 4-year-old son William on July the 11th. They were reunited after being separated for 55 days during detention at the Texas border. And all this is part of the U.S. bishops who are really getting involved now. They visited the border and they want to get involved in reuniting the children and their families. So, and then on the back page, we have conversations with Archbishop J. And this is the reality of family life, and he's looking at that encyclical letter we talked about at the beginning of the program, Humanae Vitae, issued by Pope Paul VI, and it was really a hot topic back when it was issued.
Of course, yes.
So Archbishop Jason is talking all about that.
His key messages, where we may not have time to read it.
Yes.
But yeah.
You'll read it yourself.
Yeah, read it yourself.
Plenty more to read in the Catholic News. Thank you for joining us.